I forget how much I hated school, right? Until I became a parent and I realised how much I love school. Because it's the first day of the school holidays, and my daughter's already came to me twice saying that she's bored.
Wow.
So
that's impressive.
It is, and I almost slept in for the morning rabble because my routine in the morning is getting my daughter up for school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a tricky 7 weeks, mate. It's going to be a very, very tricky 7 weeks.
You're waiting until she starts working. That's when she'll realise when pure boredom hits.
Yeah, no. I've also, because my missus is away out, my daughter's got her pal, and I've got to have the dogs in with me.
Oh God.
So yeah, so they're not happy about being stuck in the room. But anyway, hello everybody, welcome along to your afternoon rabble here on the Rangers Rabble Podcast. I'm Martin, hello, and I am joined by William Urban. Wally, how are you?
Yeah, good mate, not too long home for work, so just having a nice chilled afternoon.
I was going to go into something else there, but I'm not going to bother getting into it. Hello everybody in the comments, how are we? Please do get your comments in. It really, really does help with some of the content as well, especially as you can see my dog's tail just flying in the background. Especially as, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a slow news week, Wally, because it's not. There is plenty to talk about, but I always find that people in the comments are a lot more intelligent than me, so they bring up better points. You know what I mean?
Seems fair.
Yeah, it really does seem fair. Right, so what's on the show today? Right, well, obviously Igamanes. Big news coming out about him possibly travelling to France after only a season at Rangers. Rangers are apparently also interested in Emmanuel Fernandez from Peterborough after it seems that the Poku deal has fell through. We'll discuss that as well. I also want to speak to Willie a little bit about the youth and about the new role that David McCallum has took up. Maybe Willie can give us an insight into exactly what that role is, what David McCallum's job is, etc., and how the academy is going to look this season, because in a few weeks I think we might have a wee announcement to make on that. But we're going to start with the rumours are flying everywhere, right? But the reason I'm going to ask you about this, guy, is because I think it takes it into a wee bit of an interesting dynamic conversation wise. But Luke de Jong has been linked with Rangers, 34-year-old. Born a year after me, which is rather depressing. But 34-year-old has had a very, very good career, has played for his country as well, has played against us and has caused us some issues. What do you make of that link?
Yeah, look, it's certainly an interesting one. He's obviously a pretty decent age. He's not maybe in the early 20s, maybe that some people maybe would have expected. I think it obviously is going to come down to how many experienced players are going to leave the building. I know obviously Robin Propper's not everybody's favourite player type thing, but that's somebody that's quite experienced that's probably going to be leaving the building. It looks like Dessers could be leaving the building. We've obviously lost Balogun. So yeah, look, I'm not against adding a couple of experienced people that can help us through. And then De Jong's a hell of a player. I do remember him at PSV, obviously, and he's a tough player to play against. Clearly, he's a quality player. I would guess that would be a suggestion that we're maybe going to go with 3 strikers all in the squad. So if Dessers was to go and Igamanes goes, you would have De Jong, obviously Danilo if he's still here, and then maybe a slightly younger player that maybe De Jong could help along. But it's really hard to know because, I mean, let's be honest about it. A lot of the stuff seems to be coming out and it is just pure rumour, pure speculation, because the club are so quiet on everything that it's hard to know what's true, what's not true. Even people, like sort of within the club are very quiet on these things. So it's very hard for us to know what's happening. We've just seen some of the news breaking in social media, and obviously we kind of speculate on if it's possible or not. I would say, yet again, a bit like Connor Cody, if it's for a very low fee or no fee at all, and they feel as though it's the right type of fit for what they're looking for, I'm not against it. But as you pointed out, if there's no resale value is that something we're willing to accept because we're obviously going to pay wages for 1 or 2 years, which aren't going to be particularly low when it comes to those two players that I named?
Yeah, and by the way, not that I need to defend myself, right? Because I really, really don't. But John Walker, Martin watched the Rangers review and regurgitates. I have, and this is nothing against the Rangers review or any other Rangers show. I purposely don't watch them, so that when I come on to do this, it's all my own thoughts and all my own research. I've never watched a single episode of the Rangers review in my life, not one. So take that and shove it where the sun don't shine, Johnny boy. But there we go. I've just kicked my dog in the face because it was at my feet. I didn't realise. But no, it takes it into a wee bit of a wider discussion, Wally. I feel nowadays when we look at football and we look at transfers, all we look at is 19, 20, 21-year-olds, maximum 23 years old, because you need to have that resale value, etc., etc. So do we actually have to strike a balance between bringing in, quality youth that are going to have a resale value, but also, like you said, bringing in that experienced player who might only be here for a season or 2 seasons max, but you're going to take a loss on financially?
I think it's one of those ones when you look at, like, for instance, if you look at Connor Cody, right, if we just look at him as a player, we obviously have lost a lot of centre-halves. We really don't have a lot of options there at the moment. So clearly we need at least one experienced centre-half. If you look at Connor Cody, he's probably going to cost a fee. Whether that's $500,000, $1 million, I don't know what it's going to be, right? But you're probably going to be picking up a pretty good chunk of wages. You're probably looking at 25, 30, 35 grand a week. So that's what he's going to cost you. If you're prepared to give him a 2-year deal and you're paying a fee, and you've also got, the additional bonuses if he helps us win the league, if he gets us into the Champions League, all of these wee kind of caveats that come as part of your contract, it could end up costing the club £6, £7, £8 million. But if that's what they feel is needed in that dressing room, if that's what they feel they need on the pitch, then I'm not against it. Because see, at the end of the day, as a supporter, you don't always need to agree with every signing that's made. Like, you don't need to agree with every tactical decision that's made. But see, at the end of the day, it's the guys that are in there at the moment. If things don't go well, then they're the ones that are going about the door. And you heard that for the new owners. They'll give them enough space to do their job. But if they don't do their job very well, they'll be taken out. And that's just how it is. And it's going to be the same for Fellwell and Dan Purdy and for Russell Martin. The recruitment this summer has to be very, very good. And it's got to be the right type of characters who can come into that dressing room, who can lead that dressing room, who are not scared to go out and play in front of 50,000 people at Ibrox. And they've got to be good enough to go to other places and win games of football, which we've been a bit hit and miss at for several years. So, yeah, I totally understand the link to some more experienced players because I do think that's what is needed. But I do also understand the other side of it where people are saying, well, if we bring in a De Jong and a Connor Cody and they're both on 30 grand a week, is that really value for money? I can't answer that. It's only the people inside Rangers that can really answer that. And I guess we'll only really know that come the end of the season if we've been successful or not.
And also a player like De Jong, and I'm not, it could just be a throwaway something somebody, that's not easy to say, has thrown on Twitter, or a journalist is making it up to try and get clicks. But a player like De Jong, that big physical stature, never bullied off the ball, great in the air. I mean, that is somebody who we really, really need in the team, especially while in Scotland.
Yeah, and I think one of the big problems you've now got is that so many players are signed so early on in their career, so anybody that's got real potential is almost hoovered up by all the big clubs so quickly. So, Rangers are working in a smaller pool in terms of what we can bring into the football club. That's not something I ever thought I would say when I watched Rangers 20, 25 years ago when we were out signing, like Dutch internationals and guys like that, because it felt like, we were up there with the big boys. We could afford to bring these players in. That isn't necessarily the case now. And even with the new ownership, I don't see us throwing silly amounts of money in there. I would imagine we'll only spend big this summer or next summer as if we can move players on, which obviously we're just about to kind of touch on in the next couple of minutes. But yeah, there's got to be a degree of smart business. And if we can add a Connor Cody or a Luke de Jong and the club feel like it's an okay deal to do and it's something that's going to help the younger players in the squad, so who am I to say they shouldn't do it?
No, and let's talk football careers to say that I'm all for centre-backs with experience, but a slow striker who doesn't press. I'm not necessarily saying it has to be a Luke de Jong. All I'm saying is that I feel up front, Wally, we have lacked that physicality for some time.
Yeah, because we don't really play that type of game most of the time. We probably haven't played that kind of game for a substantial amount of years. And I think the game has kind of moved away from those type of players, in all honesty. I think now you're looking for more mobile strikers, guys that can get in behind, that can play in, sort of inside the full-back. And you look at some clubs now that don't even play with a proper number 9.
I know.
So like the game has changed a lot. But then again, like you watch the big striker that's playing for the German under-21s. What was he, 6'6", 6'7"? But he's got great feet. Like his movement in the box was absolutely terrific. So, yeah, look, there's still a place for these type of players, mate. It's not like we're sitting saying, he's not good enough. And like, who am I to tell, like, Luke de Jong, like a guy that's won, like, European titles and stuff like that he's not good enough to come in and play for Rangers? I mean, I get where people are coming from, but I think a lot of people are looking at how Russell Martin's teams have played previously.
Mm-hmm.
Like Russell Martin was obviously sacked at Southampton. So he's maybe went away and looked at something and went, you know what, I can't get caught out doing the same things again. Maybe he's looked at things and he's realised that he needs to go down a slightly different route. So look, we're kind of like guessing at the moment as to how he's going to set up. We're guessing as to what kind of players he's looking for because we don't really know. And I would like to think that any manager that's lost his job like he did at Southampton in the manner that it happened, he would go away and like sort of reflect on what he needs to do better. Because see, at the end of the day, he's joined one of those clubs, i.e. Rangers or Celtic, that just demand success. So he knows as soon as that first kick-off game and the first meaningful game against Panathinaikos, the pressure is purely on him.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows it. He knows it straight. In fact, he's probably already under pressure. He's not even actually had a game yet because that's just the nature of being like a manager of Rangers or Celtic. If people don't like that, then you shouldn't apply for the job because that's the reality of being at this, at this football club. There is nowhere to hide. If we have a poor start to the season, social media is going to be awash of people saying, well, we told you so, he's not good enough. And that's the nature of being on social media. And I think people have to accept that's the case. So, like, he will know himself that, the recruitment before this Panathinaikos game has to be absolutely spot on.
Yeah, it really does. And Scott Kearney made a good point in the comments there that people complaining about Luke de Jong are the same people who want Vardy in the door. And I think it's telling that we've been linked with 2 older strikers. I think that's quite telling as to where the club may go. But, however, talking about strikers, Wally, Hamza Igamane, very well reported now, it's everywhere that there's a possibility he could be off to Lille. I hate these conversations. My earphones just died there, by the way. That's why I was like, I hate these conversations over money and price, etc., etc. But let's just start with the player. He's only been here a season. He caught the eye. He's caught the eye of a lot of football clubs. Is he a player, if you're Rangers, that you would be saying, let's try our best to keep a hold of him? Or is it a case of, if we get the money, he's gone?
I think we touched on this on the last pod, didn't we? It's a difficult one, to be honest with you. We've obviously only had him for a year. We've probably only really seen him for like 5 or 6 of those months in a Rangers jersey. There was obviously glimpses of brilliance at times. Some of the ability with the ball at his feet. The amount of nutmegs that he tries is actually ridiculous at times, to be honest, and he seems to get away with it more than not. He has the ability to score goals that I don't think any of our other strikers can score. He's got a rawness about his game that's actually quite good to watch because, like, sort of without kind of going kind of too far off topic, it feels like now at the academy, players are almost turning into robots and that they've got to play a certain style in a certain way. And like Igamane's not got that. He's been allowed to kind of play the game the way that he wants to play the game. He's like a free spirit, the way that he plays. And I'm not surprised that he's been linked with a lot of clubs. In terms of his value, it's so difficult to know, in all honesty. Is it 10 million with add-ons and sell-on fees? Because the sell-on fee could turn out to be worth as much as what we sell them for. Because you see some of the, the money that's been handed over now for strikers, it's 30, 40, 50, 60 million. If Rangers get like a 20% sell-on fee, you could be looking at another £6 or £8 million for him in 2-3 years' time. And these are the things in football now. I think it's a massive part of every transfer now, especially when you're selling young players. A sell-on fee is absolutely massive.
But the counteract to that, right, is all right, get 10, 15 million or whatever, but get good sell-on clauses, etc. International appearances, monthly fees, future fees, etc. Is he worth more though? Staying with the team this season, staying another year, learning under Martin, helping us win trophies, and then his value skyrockets.
Of course, yeah. Look, you could argue that as well, 100%. And the thing is, this is yet again like sort of doubling back on what we kind of spoke to a couple minutes ago. This is where guys like Dan Purdy and Kevin Felwell are going to like sort of earn their money. They've got to look at it right now and say, can we get more for Hamza next summer? Is he going to be worth more money if he plays 40 games this season, scores 20, 25 goals, helps the club have a successful season, does well in Europe? How much more is his value going to increase between now and next summer? I don't know, like this is just like a for instance, right? So I'm not telling people this is what he's worth, right? But if somebody comes in and says, there's £15 million guaranteed and we'll give you X amount add-on, say it's another 2 or 3 million, and we'll give you a 15% sell-on fee. I think Rangers will really struggle to turn that down. Because at the end of the day, it cost us about 1.5, 1.8 million. I think it was kind of quoted at the time. I can't remember the exact figures, but I think it was just less than 2. So if somebody's going to come in there and tell you you're going to be guaranteed £15 million, that is a hell of a lot of money for a guy that's been here a year.
Does that change now, though, Wally, with the new owners? Does the money side of it change? Because we've seen, or at least we've heard reports that Rangers are standing firm with their price for Dessers, and we're talking like, there's only like 2 or 3, £400,000 in it, but Rangers are standing firm. So with the new owners and with the money that they have, albeit Rangers still need to be a profitable football club, right? Every football club is supposed to have to be profitable, and we're not going to get that through TV rights. The only way we can make a profit is through real sponsorship, match day gates, and winning things. So it's a tricky one, mate. It's a really tricky one.
It's almost an impossible task, isn't it? Because obviously every supporter is aware that, how would you put it? Like, so we want to keep our best players, but we also know that we need to sell players to allow us to help, like, sort of recruit moving forward. It's not just about this window, it's about the January window, and then next summer, then the January window. So we need to keep bringing in money, which allows us to keep spending. So, look, it would be great if we could sell Cyril Dessers for 5 or 6 million, and then sell Ridvan for 5 million, and then we somehow managed to get a fee for Kieran Dowell and Ben Davies and Rabbi Matondo. It would be great if we could get good fees for all these guys, and all of a sudden there's a 15-20 million pound chest of money there that the manager can go out and spend and top up what the owners have given him. But the reality is, I don't think that's the case. And the 1 or 2 or 3 players in this squad who have genuine value right now is probably obviously Mo Diamande, Nico Raskin, and Hamza Igamane. So realistically, one of those guys probably has to go this summer to help the budget for the manager, not just this window, but the up-and-coming windows, because obviously very rarely do you get all the money up front. It's generally paid in instalments. So if we have like the Igamane deal and say it is 15 million guaranteed, it's probably say 5 million this summer, then maybe 5 million in January or 5 million next summer, or it's spread 5 million, 5 million, and 5 million over the next 3 summers, whatever way that it works out or the club agree to. So like it's not just about now, it's about moving forward. When is the right time to sell Nico? When is the right time to sell Dio? When is the right time to sell Hamza? And this is what the club need to decide, mate. It's so difficult, isn't it? It's almost impossible.
We need to be self-sufficient as a football club, right? And we need to start making better choices at board level. But we also still have to be successful. So you have to balance that. I mean, you brought up Nico Raskin there. I mean, again, the rumours, and I stress, I don't know anything, it's just rumours, that Aston Villa are making inquiries about Nico Raskin. Now, for me, taking my Rangers hat off and my blue specs off, Aston Villa for Nico Raskin right there would probably be a fantastic move for his career, I think. Aston Villa have done well with the players that they've brought in for Scotland. Just look at John McGinn. He's went to Aston Villa. He's been sensational for them. Unai Emery's a fantastic coach. They've done really well in Europe last season. They fell away in the league, but they were in Europe. So, a move to like the likes of Aston Villa for Nico Raskin would be phenomenal. Not for Rangers though, unless we get the correct fee. And the difficulty with playing in Scotland is, if Nico Raskin was playing for Ipswich last season or West Ham, for example, that's a 35, 40 million pound transfer before you even blink, right? Yeah. But at Rangers, Willie, you say 25 million and you get laughed at.
Aye, look, mate, I mean, everything you said there's spot on, and I would like to think that everybody in the comments is in agreement with it. It does feel like in Scotland there is a threshold as to what clubs will pay for players, and it feels like the top end of that is probably 20 to 25 million pounds. Mm-hmm. Now, with Nico, he's in a different position to Hamza. I mean, I think Hamza's still got like 4 years left in his deal. So Rangers are in a far, far, far better position with Hamza. But realistically, like, if we want to keep Hamza, we probably need to offer him a new deal in terms of an improved wage, which will keep him and his agent happy. With Nico, it's totally different because we can't allow Nico to get into the last year of his contract.
No.
We just can't allow that to happen. So this summer, the Island has to sign a new contract at Rangers or he has to be sold. And that's where Rangers are this summer. I genuinely don't think Rangers as a football club, with the new ownership, with the people that's been brought in, will allow Nico Raskin to get to the last year of his contract.
But the thing is, well, right, see if he refuses to sign a new contract, right?
Yeah.
And we have to sell him. Does that not also bring down his price?
Probably, but then as a football club, can we afford to let him run down the last year of his contract? That's the problem we've had now for the last 3, 4, 5 years that we've allowed players to do that. And when you get to the last year of your contract, very few players are going to sign a new contract at that point if they're doing well, because they can get a far bigger signing on fee as a free agent. They can get far bigger wages. They can basically pick their own future. And that's the real difficulty for it, isn't it? I mean, see, the club are in control up until a certain point. But I believe that once you get into those last 2 years, the club start to lose control of any player at any level. Because at the end of the day, even in January, you're probably going to look at losing maybe 5 million in terms of his value. If you get to next summer, what's his value next summer? What do you get for a guy that basically 6 months after that he can sign for another club?
Maybe 5 to 10 million.
Whereas at the moment, what are you thinking? What's Nico's value in your eyes right now, with 2 years left in his contract? He's just broke into the Belgian national team, and
I mean, I would if he had 3 or 4 years, I'd be saying 25.
And that's the thing, the boss. We don't have that control at the moment. We would need to make Nico one of the highest paid players, if not the highest paid player at the football club. That's if he wants to stay.
I would say right now, if Aston Villa came in and we got offered 20 million, I don't think any reasonable supporter would say, don't take it. I mean, I would, but I'm not reasonable because I want Nico to stay at the football club, right? I love him. I think he can help us win things next season. I really do think he can help us win things. And the problem is right now, I don't think anybody truly trusts the recruitment team right now because of where we've been. So it's up to the recruitment team to get that right, get into this season and getting the trust back of the supporters. But I think you'd bite the hand off Villa for 20 million right now for Nico Raskin. I really do.
Yeah, and this is it. I mean, I think one of the big problems now, and it's something that again is not like easy to digest after growing up in different eras and watching different Rangers teams and stuff like that, and the quality of players we had compared to now. But the reality is, if one of the teams in top 5 leagues decides they want a player from Rangers or Celtic, they're 99 times out of 100 going to sign them. Mm-hmm. Because when agents start talking to other clubs, which is how it works now, whether people like it or not, people can say it's tapping up and all that, but everybody knows. Yeah, it happens everywhere. So generally the agents are spoken to first, and they'll say to him, how much would your client like to move to our football club? Oh, okay, so we're going to triple his wage. Okay, that's great. So what's his value? And then that's when it really starts. And that's why every deal takes so long, because there's so many things to every deal. But I'm with you. I think it's highly likely we lose Nico this summer. I think it's highly likely if he doesn't agree to sign a new deal, because I don't think we can allow him to get into that last year. It would be interesting to see what people are saying in the comments, because I think it's a real risk to allow a player to get into these last 12 months. A real risk.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan McPhail, I would say 18 million would be a good deal, and he has to be sold this summer. He's not going to sign a new deal with the EPL interest. And again, taking that Rangers hat off, the Rangers goggles off, can you blame him? No. I mean, if somebody came to you tomorrow, Willie, and went, listen, do you fancy coming to work for us? We'll pay you 3 times what you're getting paid. You'd be like that. Well, aye, all right. No bother for the same job, and you're working with better employees. You'd be like that. Well, I mean, aye, all right then. It's too difficult for a player to turn down. It really, really is.
Well, I think I read the other day there now that if you look at last year in the English Premier League, the average. Now, this is just the average. It's not the top earners, clearly, before people start jumping on it. The average wage is £65,000 a week, right? Now, I think everybody on here knows that we're not paying Nico Raskin anywhere near £65,000 a week. So if he goes to the EPL, I'm to sign for Aston Villa, the bare minimum he's getting is 65 grand a week, right? That's £3 million a year. If he was to sign a 4 or a 5 year deal, that money would probably mean that Nico will never have to work again in his life once he retires.
Yeah, I mean, probably because we do see so many players now going bankrupt.
Yeah, so I don't think we can ever stand in somebody's way when there's that level of finance on offer. I think that's just the reality of where we are. And you hit the nail on the head earlier on when you talk about signing players maybe from 18 to 23. Yes, these are the guys we're going to sell for good money. You know, because we only probably are going to get 2 years out of them maximum most of the time. It's either that, or we continue to look at bringing in the best loans we can. And I think we've done pretty well with the loan deals overall. When you look at the quality of player that we've managed to bring in, I mean, like obviously Malik Tillman looks like he's about to move for 30 or 40 million pounds. So, you know, you look at like sort of what Czerny's done for us. It's certainly a thing that we need to keep doing, is looking at loans. We probably can't afford to buy our main signing so far this summer, because his value at Bournemouth is probably £8 to £10 million, and I don't see us spending that on a right back, even though I do think Max is a very good fullback. I don't think we'll spend that one.
Let me just ask you about him quickly, because I mean we're running over time, but I knew we would because you're on. I'll let everybody know. See, me and Wally are on a phone call. It's usually, I would say, averages about 2 hours. The phone call. I mean, I won't go into the details of what we talk about, but it usually lasts about 2 hours. But Max Aarons, Wally, I've not really actually had much of a chance to speak about him since he was signed. What do you make of that loan signing?
I think he's a very good loan signing. And I don't tend to say that about loan signings when they first come in, because I think sometimes you look at players and you think, well, maybe they're out on loan for a reason. For him, it's obviously because he's had a few injuries. That's, what the reality is. However, obviously, having seen him, a couple of years ago, I thought he was exceptional. He's a very athletic fullback. He's very aggressive. He wants to get forward. He's attack-minded. He's almost like a younger version of Tav in a lot of ways. Although I would like to think he's maybe slightly better defensively than what Tav is as a fullback. But he's very much in the same mould in that he wants to get forward. He wants to attack. He wants to get balls into the box. He probably won't score the level of goals that Tav does because, no fullback really does. Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited by him. I think he's a very good signing. I think they've done well to get him on a loan, because I think when you look at it, as I said before, we probably can't afford to buy him. I think he's under contract till like 2028 or 2029, so he's still got a long time to go. And I would imagine that
couldn't afford these wages either, will he? To be honest.
No, I wouldn't think so. And I think the reality is he's one of those players that obviously the manager knows, the assistant manager knows. He's obviously a player that's played at a pretty good level. He was obviously touted about, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago now, he was touted about quite a few top clubs in Europe. So Rangers will be hoping to get him back to that level again, and then that then helps Bournemouth, and then maybe Rangers are looked at in a different light in terms of, players coming here. Because I think sadly for a few years now, some clubs just wouldn't send us players on loan because of certain things that have happened in the past. And I think it's unfortunate that we've not been able to afford Cherny, because I do think that Cherny would have been a really good signing this summer for us. But yet again, it kind of falls into that one where up until recently, I'm not so sure the club would have spent that level of money on him again, because you're talking about a guy at his age, the wages, the fee, and everything that comes with it. It's such a difficult one, but I don't mind just a straight loan where that's like it. There's no obligation, there's no mandatory purchase. I quite like just the fact that we know we're getting him for a year. If he does well, it benefits us and it benefits him, and then maybe Bournemouth are able to sell him on for better than what they paid for him.
See, the sad thing is we've now got owners, right, that see if we were in the EPL like Leeds, our owners could spend 150 million, no problem. Absolutely no problem. But the problem isn't, and it's when we say, we can't afford that. It's not that we can't afford that financially. It's that the income of the football club doesn't allow us to afford that, which is, I mean, if our owners wanted, they could pay 150 million. They could spend 150 million and pay players 50, 60 grand, 70 grand a week. That's the kind of money that we've got at the football club now. It's just a shame that we play in a league and we have a structure in our league that doesn't allow us to go out and spend money on really, really top players that could come in and make a difference. But we do have to move on, Willie, and I want to finish up on a wee bit of the academy. I haven't really had a chance to speak to you much about David McCallum's new role. Firstly, Willie, what is it and what does it entail?
He's basically like sort of overseeing the running of the academy. It looks as though it is only a sort of interim role, which is what he'd partly done before. I mean, yeah, again, I don't know the whole truth, because obviously you hear a lot of rumours, you hear a lot of things that have been said. It sounds like they did offer the job to somebody and that it didn't happen. I mean, whether that's true or not, I don't know, because yet again, it was a rumour. With Davey, I think it's just one of those ones. He's obviously an experienced hand. He's been at the academy a number of years. He obviously knows a lot of the players. And it's probably just one of those ones where it's a safe pair of hands until they can maybe go out and bring somebody in. Obviously we were linked strongly with the guy that was at Everton. Was it Posner or Prosner? And that one obviously hasn't happened. So Davies obviously an interim charge. He'll basically see the running of the academy until such times as somebody else is obviously given that job. I don't know what that's going to mean, because at the time, I think Davy was supposed to be taking the under-17 group for this coming season. So I take it that's not going to happen now. So we will probably have to bring in maybe a new coach. Although we do still have Brian Gilmer there, who was part of the first team last season. So I don't know what his role will be within the academy. We'll probably find some of these things out in the coming weeks when we get back to watching games again, and that's kind of tends to be when you find out what's happening. But basically, Davey's going to kind of oversee the running of the academy in the short term until the club obviously decides who they're going to bring in.
How is the academy looking? Because it's not really been explained to supporters exactly what's happening. I mean, as far as we're all led to believe, the B team's effectively being disbanded. It's going to be the highest age group's now going to be the under-19s. Mm-hmm. How's that going to work, do you think, Willie, in terms of player development? But not just that, but also in terms of, I don't know, say John Souttar. I know this is a bit out of the box and doesn't usually happen, right? But say John Souttar gets an injury, right?
Yeah.
And he's on his way back and he wants to get a couple of games in the B team per se, but it's not there anymore. Can the senior players play in the under-19s? What's the script about it all now?
I mean, for what we've been told, yet again, sometimes these things don't necessarily turn out to be true, but from what we've been told, you're allowed 3 overage players in the under-19s, and they can be any age. So they could be 30, 35, they're allowed to play in the game. So yeah, if somebody was returning from injury and the club wanted him to play in this game, he would be obviously able to play. Whether that's really something that a player would get anything out of, I'm not so sure.
Fitness.
But it's interesting. Obviously, they've changed the age groups. It was 16s and 18s. Now it's 17s and 19s. Rangers have basically done away with their B team. So anybody that is above the threshold for the under-19s will basically either need to train with the first team or they'll be sent out on loan. That would appear to be what's going to happen, unless they're good enough to play for the first team, clearly. So I would imagine it'll be something that will occur quite quickly this summer. Obviously, most of those guys are now in training with the first team, as we've seen, like Paul and CEO, Xander Hutton, Finlay Curtis, Mason Munn, guys like that. I think there's a high chance all of them go out on loan. Obviously, Bailey Rice is there. I just look at Bailey, see if the manager's going to play a similar style to what he did at Swansea and at Southampton, etc. Bailey should be a good fit for that because he likes to control the game. And that's what Bailey's really good at. So it will be interesting to see how that works. If not, 100% Bailey has to go out on loan because he has to play. There's been too many wasted summers where we've not sent players out on loan to play and develop. And obviously there's this other thing which I think we spoke about in the last pod, the sort of cooperation agreement that you can have with another club in Scotland to send players out on loan. The club that we were linked with was Raith Rovers. But I don't know how much further that's went. I think they did a video on Twitter and YouTube where somebody high within the club said that they would speak to supporters before anything was agreed, but that was a couple of weeks ago, so I don't know what's happened or if anything's happened since then.
Just very, very quickly, you mentioned him there, so I'll bring it up. Bailey Rice. This seems ridiculous to ask at the age that Bailey is, right? But in terms of his Rangers career, in terms of his first team Rangers career, is this season coming make or break for Bailey if he's not sent out on loan?
You would have to say yes, because I would imagine Bailey would be beyond frustrated if he's not part of the first team this year, or he's not out on loan playing at a good level. Because that must be the biggest frustration for so many young players. Obviously, a few of these guys get some interesting opportunities last year, like sort of Finlay and Bailey coming on at Old Trafford and stuff like that. But look, it's important for these players, regardless of where their future is, they have to go and play. They have to go and play somewhere. I'm not trying to kind of go off kilter, but there's like your younger brother. He's been out on loan and played, and that's now helped him, sign with a club in Scotland. And if he hadn't been out on loan, would that club have been interested in signing him? So it's really difficult to know because you look at Scottish football in general. Not every club's going to spend a lot of money this summer in terms of wages. So we've released 13, 14 players this summer. How many of them are going to get clubs?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the tough reality of it. I mean, so far, I think only Lewis Budderowski.
It's a minefield out there, Wally. It's an absolute minefield.
What's it saying? I think out of all the players released so far, it's only Lewis Budderowski that's got a club because he signed for Partick Thistle where he was on loan last season. Like Cole McKinnon still hasn't got a club from what I've seen. Neither has like Jay Hogarth or Leighton Grant, Jack Harkness. I mean, it's not like they're bad players. I just don't think there's a lot of money in Scottish football. And it's interesting seeing like Stephen Kelly, he's went over to America now. He's decided to sign for Orange County after leaving Livingston because it's probably a better opportunity for him. Because potentially staying in Scotland, it's just not where it is for him.
Yeah, more money.
So, I mean, this is the thing. I think this is going to be an interesting summer. I'll obviously try and kind of, if I hear that anybody's signing, I'll obviously put it up on Twitter under our FC Youth updates as soon as I find out what's happening. I would imagine some players will be going in trial with some clubs, which sometimes the names get leaked out, other times it's kept quiet. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really difficult summer for some of the guys that were released, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, it's not just for Rangers, for every club. For every club that release players, all those players, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players out there struggling now to get a team. And Scottish football, the way it's structured, really doesn't help. It really
no, it doesn't, mate. And this is the thing, like, there's massive problems within Scottish football in general. I mean, we could do another podcast on it in reality. But, I mean, I go and watch my local team, the Johnston Borough, play. And, like, they're paying better money, I would imagine, than some League 1 and League 2 teams.
Yeah, they are. I've heard they've got a big striker up front who's 7 foot.
Yeah, he's not too bad. I mean, sometimes they hear, I've heard the odd song sung about it, but I don't think I'm allowed to say it on YouTube, unfortunately. But look, you see, at the end of the day, I see why more players are dropping down the levels and signing these type of contracts because they can still work part-time.
It keeps you in the game.
It does, mate. And you look at me, I think that was Stranraer signed a player from Beeve the other day there. Partick Thistle had signed a player from Beeve last summer, I think it was. So it's not like you're out of mind, out of sight when you drop out of the top 4 divisions. There's still a lot of clubs looking at players at that level, and I think it's really important that like sort of young players go and play. And I would rather they drop down a level and played every week than sit on the bench and not actually achieve anything out of it.
And I will say the money in Scottish football at the lower levels. I mean, unless like say you're at a Johnston Borough or maybe even an East Kilbride who have got proper money behind them, the money's rubbish. It's absolutely rubbish. But Wally, we will leave it there for today. I knew it was going to run over with you. It's always the same with you, honestly.
Sorry.
I actually feel for Pauline. Now I know what she's had to put up with all these years.
Well, she's not back in until after 5 o'clock, so I don't need to talk to her now.
Hey, listen, Wally, thanks very much, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you to everybody in the comments as well for getting all your comments in. Sorry I couldn't bring up a little bit more. They were going really, really quickly. And if I can just ask before you all disappear off the stream, if you're watching on YouTube, please do give the show a like if you enjoyed it. Give it a like if you didn't enjoy it as well. Just be outside the box. Make sure you are subscribed as we are that away for 14,000 subscribers, so try and help get us there if you please. That would be very, very kind of you. Check the description below as well for links to all of our socials, our shop as well, and of course if you spend £50 or more and you send proof of purchase to rabbleisland@gmail.com, you are automatically entered into the draw for a play.
Need Mark will come and see you. We'll come and chat your door as well so you can talk to us.
And we can get a shot at the PlayStation.
Yes.
So I've never had a shot at a PlayStation 5. So that would be
enough money to buy one, so it's all right.
No, neither have I. But folks, listen, that will do us for today. For all you beautiful members out there, by the way, the WWE 2K25 members versus hosts is on tonight. That will be hosted by our very own Hamish. I believe it's around about 8 o'clock. It could be 9. I will put it out on the community pages once I find out exactly what the time is. But until then, folks, stay safe. And of course, we will speak again very, very soon.